If you go back, there's a case in the Brecon Beacons, which I mentioned earlier, from 1909, Christmas 1909, when a boy of 11 was asked by his father, to have a bit of a Christmas party, to go into the yard with a bucket and get some more water from the well. It's snow on the ground, it had been snowing. Then after a minute or two he put his coat on and went to do it. Then they were all startled because of his screams from outside, and they rushed out, and they couldn't see him. We don't have big electronic flash lamps in those days, and he appeared to be his voice coming from the sky, and he was saying things like, "They've got me, they've got me," right?
This film will explore evidence of one of the biggest secrets on planet Earth. It is an expose of a particular phenomenon I have been researching since 2009. I warn you, the film may shock you and could even force you to re-evaluate your entire belief system. The implications of the cover-up exposed in this film are so profound, so far-reaching. They open up many questions about who we are and what is our true place on this planet. My involvement in this research started in 2008 when I set up a website to cover information about the subject of UFOs. In 2009 I set about carrying out my own search for evidence in this much misunderstood subject. I have produced several films, all of them evidence-based, and would like to take you back to the first one made in 2009, Silent Killers, because for me this is where it all begins. Within ufology, the phenomenon of animal mutilation is well known about. In the United States, Linda Moulton Howe, an award-winning American journalist, has covered the issue in detailed documentaries, books, radio shows and on her website. Her work probably represents the most comprehensive coverage of this issue across the world, which is largely ignored or misreported by mainstream media. It involves fresh animal corpses being found with a variety of peculiar surgical injuries on their bodies, usually without blood being present. The three most common explanations offered in order to satisfy public curiosity are animal predation, satanic cults, or secret military projects. Anyone who researches the evidence in depth will quickly learn that none of these explanations satisfactorily fit the evidence. Since at least the 1970s, animal mutilations have been inextricably linked to UFO activity, because unidentified lights or craft have been witnessed in specific areas shortly before mutilated animals are discovered. In the 2009 film Silent Killers, I followed the work of David Caton and the Animal Pathology Field Unit, who have investigated cases of bizarre animal mutilation in the UK since 1997. A very quick roundup of the common injuries that are found on animals which show some kind of unexplained phenomenon, animal mutilation. What are the injuries that are found?
Well, starting at the head end, you get a very common thing is the ears to remove, sometimes to the scalp, or halfway across, often an eye or both eyes. Sometimes the lips are just excised, just showing the teeth. Sometimes there is a more extensive jaw strip, sometimes just one side, usually the left, strange if it's one, and sometimes both sides, a complete left to right strip. And then internally the organ, the tongue is removed, often from the back of the throat, sometimes halfway down or just a few millimetres from the tip. And it's usually a sort of slightly angled straight cut, and generally no blood, no bleeding, because the tongue, of course, if the animal is living and breathing, if you cut your own tongue, it's an organ that bleeds a lot more than many others. And then you will find, as you move down into the throat area, you'll find excisions into the throat and the neck, and organs removed from there. And then you'll find holes in the body of various shapes and sizes, sometimes quite small, where internal organs have been removed. And then if it's a female like a cow or a goat, udders can be removed completely, or sometimes just the teats sliced off, and not all the teats sometimes, like maybe 2 out of the 6, say. And then you will find the genitals have been sliced off very expertly. Sometimes if it's a male, it's all the genitals. Sometimes it might be just the scrotum and the penis is left. Female, again, the vulva, the genital area is excised, and then moving further around to the rectal area, you often find a neat hole into the rectum and material removed internally, so there's discontinuities between the rectum and the stomach. Often limbs are taken off as well, or partly removed, and not unknown to be tails.
If we can move it on and say, well, okay, if this is some kind of unearthly phenomena, let's just call it that, and the government knows, or certain parts of people within the civil service, whatever you want to call it, DEFRA, know about this phenomena, or possibly more than you.
That's a doubt.
The reason why they may want to play it down or cover it up is because if they know the true source of whatever it is, and we're not saying what it is, perhaps that knowledge is something that they do not want to be in the public domain.
No, well, I can have some sympathy with that. I mean, it's very disturbing. The whole subject is very disturbing. Farmers have said to me, what's going on here? And they're not getting these answers from their own farmer media, especially the government.
I have received a report and police photographs from a case in Brazil from 1988 where the body of a man appears to have similar injuries to those found in mutilated animals. If you do not wish to view these images, look away now. Jaw strip and tongue removed. Surgical holes. Rectal core. Internal organs removed. I am not saying that this man was definitely butchered by aliens, but I think it is necessary to at least mention this evidence. I have also received information from a source I believe to be reliable, but have no way of verifying, that cases of human mutilation have occurred in the UK, and that these incidents have all been covered up by the government. The source also claimed that Margaret Thatcher, acting on a request from Ronald Reagan, set up a secret group to deal with and cover up incidents of human mutilation in the UK.
This film will carry on from where Silent Killers left off and examine evidence of human mutilation and the possible links to UFOs. I received a lot of feedback from the Silent Killers film. A message posted on my website forum by a viewer drew my attention straight away. Part of it read, "You mentioned Linda Moulton Howe in your film Silent Killers, so my question is, why do you not ask her about human mutilations in the UK and USA? Or is she, as I suspect, living off a more mundane story of animal mutilations? But there again, I suppose there's no money to be made in human mutilations. She sits in the comfort zone, which I find so disgusting that other human beings know that there are human mutilations going on, yet do nothing about it." This forum post was from Derek Goff, at the time 58-year-old living in South Wales. After reading his comments, I contacted him to ask if he could expand on what he knew about human mutilations. In 2009 we exchanged several emails and telephone calls, and from these conversations his story was described in detail and concerned meetings he had with a military man in 1997. The information given to Derek Goff in these meetings is shocking and has been the focus of my research over recent months and indeed on and off for the last 4 years. Before we examine Derek Goff's story, let's briefly look at another case which seems to show some of the telltale signs.
It occurred in Russia. 9 hikers who'd gone mountain climbing, were in a tent, and something happened.
Yeah, this is 1959,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some very blurry, poor images are circulating around the internet. Lots of speculation what happened to them. Of course, the height of the Cold War, you know, how much information was coming out of Russia was pretty zero by and large.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently post-mortems were done, and they found the bodies, and they'd obviously been terrified the way they exited the tent. There was apparently knife cuts in it, but that might not be knife cuts. And they were found at different distances apart, but suddenly were actually in a line again. They found the bodies in a line, and but one of the females, was two females in the party, and one of them, even from the fuzzy photographs, you can clearly see she's got a mandible strip exposing her gums and her teeth, and her eyes, both eyes are out. They don't mention the tongue missing, but I'm pretty sure they would have been.
Right.
And the report goes on to say there were the Russian authorities, or the Soviet authorities at that time, were mystified about the internal injuries. They all had internal injuries. Now that could cover a multitude of sins. You know, we don't know whether that was due to some impact or some blast effect. But they also had a lot of bone fractures, and it seemed to me synonymous with the bodies being dropped to the ground from some considerable height.
Mm-hmm.
So my view is that they were attacked by some alien beings who decided they were.
So you think they were possibly? You've looked at all the information that's available. You think they were taken up?
Yeah.
They were maybe interested in one or two of them that they did more work on, and they dropped the rest of them
back to the ground. Yes.
Who've suffered broken bones.
Yeah. I mean, they found they tried to set up, apparently, some of the survivors for a time anyway, another little survival camp area. There was evidence of a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Burnt, you know, some, I think about half a mile from the original tent position.
Mm-hmm.
when they obviously made a hasty retreat, or they were abducted from that tent initially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just only surmise that, can't we?
Right.
And then the temperatures about -40 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they all died for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Whether some of them succumbed to the cold, you know, because they couldn't move because they got bone fractures.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we see a full report from the Russians with the post-mortem results,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to judge exactly the sequence of events.
Right. We need a bit more information.
So there's a lot more information needed, but nevertheless it has, to me, the symptoms of the human mutilation, and particularly this one female whose body clearly reveals that. So the odds are that some of these poor victims of this Russian case in 1959 were devoid of their internal organs.
Right.
So to say they had internal injuries was probably not totally incorrect, but not quite accurate.
Right. After reading Derek Goff's intriguing post on my internet forum, I communicated with him via email and telephone in 2009, and having got the basic details of his story, I was keen to interview him. Certain people in the UFO field have tried to cast aspersions over Derek Goff and contend he may have fabricated his story. Having met him several times and exchanged much communication, I can vouch that Derek Goff is a 100% reliable witness. His story can be corroborated, and I have proof that his military contact is real. Derek Goff's story in outline is as follows. In 1996, Goff worked for a UFO magazine known as Global, and was the correspondent for the South Wales region. He was a keen UFO enthusiast with quite a maverick approach to his research. He would often spend the night in the outdoors in remote parts of the Brecon Beacons in his quest to gather evidence of UFO activity. In an effort to find new UFO witnesses, he put up some A4 posters in the areas where UFO activity had regularly been reported. He made the posters weatherproof by laminating them and stuck them on trees and fence posts in the Brecon and Sennybridge areas. This is his original poster, which reads, "I am a serious investigator into UFOs and other strange phenomena and would like to know if you have seen any strange lights in the sky in this area or the area where you may live. I am also looking for information from farmers who may have had cattle mutilations on their farmland properties. All information given to me will be held in the strictest confidence without question, and your name and location will not be revealed to anyone without your express permission. I am looking for photographic evidence of the above in relation to my investigation on your behalf. I can be contacted on the following number at any time convenient to yourself. In January 97, Gough received a phone call in response to his poster appeal. The caller wanted to meet with him to disclose information linked to UFO sightings in South Wales and in other countries. Gough then had 3 separate meetings with the witness, who turned out to be a military man and worked in a NATO Black Ops team. He was one of 11 men who were selected from Special Forces regiments stationed at Hereford. The 11 were all volunteers who were asked if they wanted to be part of a special group in which the operations would be dangerous and something different. He explained to Gough the function of the team was a fast response find and secure operation. They were on 24-hour standby and would be dispatched in military aircraft, then in a helicopter, to specific locations where UFO activity had been monitored. They would land their helicopter, and the team's job was to search the ground for any remains or evidence and prevent any disturbance of the site. Remains might be human corpses, vehicles, or in some cases even a landed UFO craft. It sounds incredible, but I have met with Derek Gough's source several times now, and I have verified he is real and seems genuine about having worked in a NATO Black Ops team. I will explain the information he gave to me later in the film. The reason he contacted Gough in the first place was because he had become unhappy with the operations he was being asked to undertake. During his military service, which started in the 1980s, he claims to have witnessed between 30 and 40 mutilated human beings in countries including the UK, Ireland, Scotland, Spain, Germany, Alaska, Australia, Yugoslavia and Russia. The range of different countries lends weight to the military man's further claim that the Black Ops group he was part of was a NATO-run operation, in which the Yanks were in charge. He even said that Russia's military knew about what was going on, but were happy to leave the clean-up operations to NATO teams who had access to better technology, which I will describe later. He showed Derek Gough a NATO identity card. The bodies recovered in retrieval missions had suffered the classic neat-edged surgical incisions with bloodless remains, identical to cases of animal mutilation. Once the team had sealed off and secured an area where bodies or other evidence were discovered, a second American team, which included scientists, would then be called out to remove the remains. He referred to this team as the collectors. When corpses were removed by these teams, information would not be given to civilian authorities about the discovery of the remains. Individuals would be placed on missing persons registers indefinitely. He said the find and secure team could be on the ground for up to 5 days during an operation, and would sometimes have to wait days for the collection team to arrive, fending for themselves in remote parts of the world. They would always be the first in and the last to leave. In the past, people have discredited Derek Gough because he could not prove his source was real. I can inform you that after much perseverance, I have made independent contact with Derek Gough's military source. I know his name, I know where he lives, I have film footage of him, and I have had several meetings with him.
Now, another question that I know will be on a lot of people's lips watching this, David, is, okay, so if these 30 to 40 people all got mutilated and were covered up by this military group, how come we don't know about these people who gone missing? Or why aren't their relatives shown the bodies, or why isn't it exposed?
I asked Tony Dodd the same questions, basically, in one of our evening phone chats. I think it was probably after he told me about the Dolby Forest case of these 7 unfortunate people who were recovered there. And I said to him, what about the relatives? What do they put on the death certificate? Mm-hmm. What does the post-mortem results say? What does the coroner's report say? Right? You know, and then there has to be a funeral. Mm-hmm. And he said, in his opinion, and I think his sources infer that the relatives of the victims are never actually informed that their lost missing person, their loved one, has been recovered. That person is still on the missing lists of the police files, which is terrible in itself, isn't it? I mean, that It's terrible. So I think Tony agreed with me when I said that probably the bodies would be removed covertly and sent down to somewhere like Porton Down in Wiltshire, which is a very secret establishment there. Might be there for a while, and then they'll probably ship them to the United States.
Now, you mentioned the Brazilian case, which in terms of photographs is probably the best case on record of a human mutilation, which took place in 1988, we believe, and there's a full police report on that. And is there a post-mortem report with that as well?
Yeah, yes there is.
Right. Now, it's quite a controversial case because certain researchers who have covered animal mutilation in a great deal of depth, such as Linda Moulton Howe, who I interviewed for the Silent Killings film that we did, and we discussed animal mutilation worldwide, and she claims to have spoken to Philip J. Corso, who told her that documents in the Pentagon state categorically that animal mutilation worldwide is an ET UFO phenomenon.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Now, however, I then wanted to discuss this Brazilian case of the mutilated man.
Yeah, with that in mind.
And let's just have a listen. Just to recap, let's just have a listen to Linda's reaction. There was one case, I believe, in Brazil where there was a jaw strip and all the other signs of mutilation.
Oh, you're talking about the photos that Gavard presented in Nevada in the early 90s and enrages me. He had not one shred of evidence beyond the photographs. The photographs were sent to me because he never had the courtesy to even contact me, to even ask me what I thought of the photograph, but used my name in the presentation as this is like the animal mutilations that Linda Moulton Howe has investigated. Untrue and absolutely unprofessional, and the wrong way to present anything to an audience when he has done no research of what I call research.
Okay.
And let me give you the backstory. So somebody tells me that this man from Brazil has done this and sends me those photographs. And I take the photograph to a medical doctor. I did not set up anything. I just put the photos down in front of a medical doctor and said, if you had a victim in front of you like this, what would you conclude? Without missing a beat, the medical doctor said, oh, I saw a lot of that in Vietnam. I said, what do you mean? He said, that's what Agent Orange does to human tissue or any tissue. I said, well, what do you mean Agent Orange does this? He said, in Vietnam, we always had, because he worked in a medvac team in Vietnam, he said, we were always spraying Agent Orange, and we were always seeing animals and humans that had these deep penetration holes surrounded by the black carbon ring because we're a carbon life form, and Agent Orange always leaves black circles around penetrating wounds in flesh because we're a carbon-based life form, and that's what Agent Orange does.
She's saying it's Agent Orange. Now, do you have any comments? What's your view on it?
Well, first time she said that to me, she was quite agitated, really. She said she'd spoken to an ex-army medical officer who was in Vietnam. Showed her the picture. She showed him she claims, the pictures of the Brazilian man body.
Which, just to interrupt there, David, had the rectal core, jaw strip, seemed to have organs removed, because the chest was sunken right in.
He had his ears removed, and the internal organs into his brain were missing, both eyes. He had two little holes in his skull, but we don't know what happened there.
Right.
And he had muscle taken from his arm, small holes, and muscle extracted, and in his thigh there's an oval hole, and his scrotum had been removed, and as you say, an anal core. There was something on his feet as well, and his toes, but just forget about that. I can't remember.
Right.
No blood again, no blood.
Right. So, you then, Agent Orange is what she...
Yes, well, I was flabbergasted, to be honest. And this army medic chap had said to her, oh yes, we've seen that before, that's Agent Orange, because they were using it in Vietnam against the Vietnamese and the Viet Cong or whatever. and I think some poor members of the public, you know, like killed with napalm as they were, were burnt by Agent Orange. But I mean, I went on internet, did a search for Agent Orange, and it's mainly chemical skin burns, which aren't deep. And certainly Agent Orange does not make surgical incisions of depth into the body and remove the organs. So for her, with all her experience and knowledge, to come out with that, to me, was quite a shock. Who was using Agent Orange on civilian populations in Brazil?
Yeah.
I mean, were the Americans... I mean, that in itself is a serious accusation to make by the American government, who will be flinging the stuff about in Brazil.
And we also have the statement from Professor Tony Fremont, because you were in communication with him in the late 1990s and early 2000s, and you showed him the photographs of the Brazilian man.
Yes. So Tony Dodd came here into this very, where we are now, conservatory, our house, with Professor Fremont, who's a human pathologist, who does pathology work for British police in UK crime, murder cases. And we went through a lot of animal pictures. A lot of them were Linda's. He brought one of Linda's books with him, Tony, because at that time I didn't have that many photographs of my own, because I hadn't been doing this research that long. And we went through all those, and then Tony opened the envelope and produced the 6 or 7 photographs of this Brazilian man, put them on the table in front of Tony Fremont, who was quite shocked, and he paused, and then he made some remark out loud, but almost to himself, like, I don't see how we could do this. So he was talking about his profession when he said the royal we, you know, we to do it.
So a professor of pathology has said that, and you've got that on tape, so we can hopefully have a listen to that.
Yes, if we can find the tape.
You recorded that meeting was recorded on audio.
Yes, with Tony's permission. You know, Tony Fremont.
Yes.
In late 2009, I visited Wales on at least 2 occasions in attempts to interview Derek Goff, but getting him to agree to speak initially was difficult. He was reluctant to talk because in 1997 he suffered serious threats and a suspicious fire shortly after informing the police about being in possession of the information. The information included colour copies of 11 photographs of 2 mutilated corpses which the police took from him. Derek decided to pass the story to somebody else because Goff himself was in fear of his life. He passed the photographs and information to retired police officer and UFO researcher Tony Dodd. This can be verified by reading Tony Dodd's book, Alien Investigator. Derek Goff is listed in the acknowledgements at the front of Tony's book. On page 257, Tony describes the Derek Goff story, although not referring to him by name. Another trusted contact, with whom I have had several conversations, has given me details of a quick response team set up by Margaret Thatcher's government, and as a result of her cooperation with President Reagan. The team, again made up of elite forces, was on permanent standby to attend the sites of any UFO landing or crash, carrying bleepers which would summon them any time they were needed. Helicopters were permanently ready to ferry them to the scene of the crash. Their role was to seal the site from the public, if necessary evacuating any civilians living within the sealed perimeter. They set up 2 cordons, a tight one around the actual UFO and a wider one to isolate the whole area within several hundred yards. They also attended sites of animal and human mutilations, which shocked and horrified them. As my contact said, they could accept the horror of war, but they were not accustomed to seeing such brutal wounds on animals and humans in peacetime. It was the secrecy surrounding the whole of their operation that made him feel it was his duty to alert the public to what was going on. Unfortunately, the first contact he made was with an inexperienced young UFO enthusiast, the book is referring to Derek Goff here, who secretly recorded their conversation. This young man played the tape to other UFO researchers and talked about it at their meetings. He was very naive because within days a mysterious fire broke out in his office at home and all his files were burned. He realized he was in over his head and contacted me. He sounded terrified. His wife was so frightened she moved out and left him. Luckily, they are now back together again. but he made it clear that he wanted nothing more to do with this investigation and passed it over to me. The soldier had also decided it was a mistake to talk, and he was very wary of me when I first contacted him. I had to send him photostats of my driving licence and proof that I had been in the police before he would agree to talk to me. He told me he had discussed me with his colleagues from the quick response team, and they had agreed to him helping me, as long as it was very discreet. They all shared his feeling that the public were being kept in the dark. They attended crash scenes across Europe, including Spain and Germany. They were not supposed to make any recording of what they saw, but he has photographs of some of the mutilations, and also a piece of debris he picked up at the scene of a crash. At one site in Spain there were several human bodies spread around the site of the crash, all naked and without body hair, and all mutilated by having limbs, etc. cut off. Although Tony does not mention it in his book, he was in possession of 11 photographs given to him by Derek Goff of 2 mutilated corpses recovered by the military team on Brecon Beacon, we think around 1990.
So we think that that Tony probably didn't put it all in his book.
No, he was quite sensitive. He was still a very loyal servant of the Crown, Tony. Serving police officers 25 years, and I think he found difficulties often with the information he had and his loyalty to his past employers, the government.
A few cases didn't appear in his book,
right.
in Tony Dodd's book, but he told you about them.
He confided to me that in North Yorkshire, in Dalby Forest, which is part of the North Yorkshire National Park, and it's a huge area of forest, sort of north of Pickering, just south of Farlingdale's early warning station, so you're sort of south of Whitby, so it's a massive area. And this area was quite renowned for animal mutilations, and Tony had quite a few reported to him by a guy that worked for the Forestry Commission, who he calls in his book Cedar. And there's everything from deer, badgers, sheep, fox even, often in quite a small area, on one occasion blocking a road, where the witnesses reported to Tony that the police, with some army personnel, had blocked the road off until they removed all the animals.
This is all in Tony's book?
Yes, it was in his book, but all this is in Dalby Forest. So I think it's quite significant that over several years there's been a history of mutilated dead animals found in the Dalby Forest area and around Ravensglass and Ravenscar and South Whitby in that area. So he went on to tell me, coming back to the human mutilations, that he knew, possibly from the same military guy, that 7 human beings had been found in the same field in a period over about 3 weeks. So I don't think they all appeared 7 together. This was 7 different bodies, and I don't know whether they were male or female, found in this same particular field. And they had the classic mutilation injuries, tongue out, jaw strips, eyes out.
And interestingly, hair removed.
Yes, and that was a very strange thing I'd never come across, and I don't know whether Tony had. But there was all the bodies were totally lacking any hair. The hair follicles somehow had been stripped and all the hair taken out. So it wasn't just the hair of the head or beards or the pubic hair. It was all over. And
that is similar to what Derek Goff described.
Right.
With the Brecon Beacon case.
Goodness me, that's interesting.
Yeah. Go on, David.
You just wanted to say that the authorities had some sort of cover story cobbled together in case something leaked to the media, and Tony thought it was quite humorous in a way. The idea was that somebody had been dumping mannequin dummies into the field. So
now there's a couple of other cases which the military guy possibly didn't mention to Goff,
right?
That we think he gave to Tony, one of them involved a Staffordshire case.
Yes, Tony mentioned, apart from the 7 bodies up in Dalby Forest in Yorkshire, there was an 8-year-old girl found in Staffordshire. Now, I don't think he said to me where in Staffordshire it was, or what year it was, or what state her body was in, but he implied that her injuries were the usual classic modus operandi of, the usual jaw strip, organs removed and all the rest of it, and being very clean and bloodless again.
Right.
Like there was no blood recorded, as far as the information went, with the 7 bodies in Dalby Forest.
Right.
Now this girl, being Staffordshire, I would say it was even money, it would be in the Cannock Chase area,
right,
because there has been quite a lot of UFO activity around Cannock Chase.
Right. And another case involving a 4x4 vehicle, this time back on Brecon Beacons.
Oh right, yes. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Yes, this was Brecon Beacons again, which is interesting, isn't it? And there was a family in a 4x4 vehicle. I don't know what the model was. If he told me he didn't, I can't remember. And they went missing for a period of time, and I think some searches were set up to go and find them. They found the vehicle first of all, with no occupants, parked up some remote spot, and one of the things that they observed was that all the seats had been ripped out in a very unusual fashion. What exactly he means by that, we don't know. But then a day or two later they found the family. It was mum and dad and a boy and a girl, ages, if he did tell me I can't remember, and they were laid out in a row on the grass or by the roadside, with again the classic mutilation injuries.
Tony Dodd is sadly no longer with us, and attempts to obtain these photographs from his widow have proved fruitless. I contacted Derek many times between 2009 and 2011, but he was reluctant to give me details because he had suffered intimidation and was very wary of speaking to anyone. I continued to request meetings with him during 2010, and in November 2011 he finally agreed to meet me and record our conversation, but would not go on camera. Also present at this meeting was David Coggins, a friend of Derek Goff, who has known him for many years and was in touch with him when he first made contact with his military source. Coggins sat in on my meeting with Derek Goff and occasionally speaks in the recorded interview. The interview was intended for my own use at the time, but recently Derek Goff has agreed to allow me to publicise it. What follows are extracts from this initial meeting. Bear in mind that I have recently fully verified that Derek Goff's source is real. Is that where the story starts, Derek, with you putting the notice up?
Yes, yeah.
Was that what year was that then?
1986, November.
Okay, so if you could explain from there, from maybe your interest in UFOs first, and then what you did.
Well, my interest in UFOs started when I was a child. But going on from there, it was, we had an incident in Aberfan in October 96. After that incident, I was really interested, so I thought I'd try to do my own investigations, information on UFOs. So I compiled some posters, went up to the area of Cwmcadlan, near Brecon, up near the Story Arms, and put them up on trees.
Right.
Because there's a visitor centre as well. That was on the 2nd of November, 96. On 6th of January, 97, I had a phone call, which I wasn't home at the time, stating that a gentleman would like to speak to me in regard to a poster that somebody given him would be up there,
right,
who was in the military. Okay. And the story went from there. He gave me the gist on the phone what it was about, and he said it's more serious than lights in the sky, and I arranged to meet him. Okay. And he did say he was in special forces. He said, would you like whose car were you using? So I said, he said, can we use mine? I said, yeah, fair enough. So my partner at the time jumped in the back seat. I jumped in the front. Before we started off, before car was started, he showed me his documents, which was a car, like a credit card size, perhaps a little bit smaller than that. And it had an emblem on it. I'm not sure the emblem, but it was like a credit card then, with that little silver thing on it. And on the top there was NATO.
But even in NATO, I mean, I spent 2.5 years at RAF Germany, and you got the Dutch, the Germans, the Belgians, the Norwegians, the French, us and the Americans, and they've got big bases in in Germany they had at the time. And I would suggest that the people with the clout, even in NATO, is the US. The US military. Predominantly, I think, rule the roost. That's my opinion, anyway.
This is who I am. He gave me his V5, which is from his documents for his car, to prove who he was. I had already taken his number plate anyway, to check myself. So I knew who he was, and then he stated that he was in this Group 58, part of the Special Forces. He had other military documents as well, passes for RAF St Athens and mainly barracks. We jumped in the car, we started off, we went up to Caerphilly, down to Cardiff. I mean, he must have been doing 25, 30 miles an hour. I mean, on the A470, that's slow. We carried on talking, and he started telling me about, he was on find and secure. That's what his job was, find and secure.
Find and secure.
Yeah, when objects came down. We carried on the conversation. My partner was taking notes about writing, but then he came out with some photographs. Stopped the car in a lay-by.
And did he say how many was in his team when they go out to these?
5. But the important thing about it is when these objects came down, their job is to find and secure an area. And put his hand in his pocket and then took out these photographs. Colour, full colour. Asked me, was I alright? With the feeling of seeing something I wouldn't be sure of. And I said, yeah, I'm thinking of being a bit naive. Showed me the photographs, and it's just, mouth went dry, just something that you think, I'm in a car with this man and he's showing me these. You know what I mean? And he was a big bloke, like.
Right.
What were the photographs of, Derek?
Okay.
A girl and boy. Girl of 16, boy of 21.
Right.
Can't go through it now, so I can't...
difficult for you to
can't do it.
Right. So there were 11 photographs. Right. And...
no genitals. Are gone.
Just take your time.
Teeth missing. That's... and the boy had... most of his skin was peeled off. All the top layers is red. It's just horrifying.
Right.
And that was horrifying enough on its own, but to think I did in a car with this man and my partner in the back, I mean, I think I'm a bit handy, but compared to this guy, after what I seen, I thought, and I'm stuck in the middle of this.
Right.
Anything could have happened to us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So just to specifically ask you about the injuries, Derek, if that's okay, did you see any edges of flesh cuts or anything like that?
No, just no genitals, nothing.
Right, okay.
All gone.
But there weren't any, I mean, like in the animal mutilation cases, you have certain characteristics.
No, where the genitals are, there was like a circle, like
a circle,
gone out, like a cutter had gone in, but it was
like a cutter had gone in and taken them out. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, but there was no mess, eh?
No mess.
Which I understand now, but I didn't understand then. But now I know about
Right.
this blood thing that
Right.
carries on. I mean, it's just clean cut. It was just like somebody had put a cutter in and
Right.
taken it.
So just to get them, we'll quickly list them. So the genitals were gone on both the male and the female.
Yeah.
Right. And what about the breasts on the
Gone.
female?
No, nothing. No teeth. No eyes.
No teeth, no
Lips
eyes.
are gone.
Okay. And were they decomposed at all? Or
No. That's another
Right. Okay.
funny thing.
And was the skin gone on the entire bodies on both of them then?
No, just on the boy.
On the boy. So he
He said it's like somebody just peeled it off.
Right.
All the top part.
Right. And but the girl had her head hair removed and all of that.
All the hair had gone. It's like if it looked like a newborn child that had been, but had grown up, born like that. Nothing.
Right.
No facial hair, nothing at all.
So she just had genitals removed. And
Breast
removed. Lips.
No, well, if I say eyes, the eyes were sunken in then.
Okay.
And he said to me that when he checked it, because he got to check for certain things, possibly life, there was nothing there.
And did it look as though the chest cavities and stomach area were sunken at all, or did they look like normal?
No, they looked. Well, the breast was just like somebody had sliced the breasts off.
Okay.
And it was just red there, just that deep colour of red. But there was nothing coming down the sides or.
So was any blood dripping on the carpet?
No, nothing at all. Nothing.
Okay, we were just talking earlier about
how similar this sounds to some animal mutilation cases. For example, of taking breasts, we find that in some of your cases, tell us what has happened with udders and all the rest of it.
Yes. Well, it's quite common for large semicircular or circular cuts to be made, and a whole udder of a cow to be removed, or on the side of the body sometimes, in sheep as well.
Right.
So why they're doing that, I don't know.
I mentioned before that on both bodies, Gough claims that they were hairless. All the hair had been removed on the heads and the pubic hair.
So that checks out with the 7 bodies up in Dalby Forest. Then,
yeah, and we were looking at a picture of a seal earlier on, which just tell us about that, David. I think you've got it down there.
Yeah, this is interesting because we're back in Yorkshire again, on the beach at Filey, which is not a million miles from Dalby Forest, on the Yorkshire coast, and I think it's a harbour seal. And it's got some very neat holes at the back end. There's 2 circular holes, probably in the anal area, and the second one genital, and then there's a sort of oval-shaped hole further up its tummy, very close to the circular hole there. And then the head has been completely stripped of all tissue. Not a whisker, and very neat sort of edge. There's a massive abrupt change between its neck area, with it's still the outer skin there and the blubber, and then you've got the skull and the jaw, including the ears and the back of the head, pristine, and it also had one of the flippers.
Did he say where these photographs were taken?
Yes, he did. Well, I asked him that.
Yeah. And where was that?
Up in Brecon Beacons.
Up in the Brecon Beacons area. Right.
And did he explain to you what their part of the mission was in dealing with those corpses? Just tell us what he said.
Wait for the military to turn up.
Right.
Americans always turned up.
So their role was to go there, seal the area off,
find and
secure,
and do nothing else.
And then do nothing else. So they weren't allowed to touch them.
Nope, nothing.
Right. Then they had to wait for the Americans.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And did he say what the Americans then did with the?
There was a police officer was called up to the military range up in Brecon. Top military police officer, I think it's above inspector, and they were told he tried to intervene on the investigation that was going on because it was in between public land and military land.
Right.
And the American officer said to the gentleman that I was I'd been in touch with, if he doesn't go, he said, shoot him.
Right.
That's how bad it was, he said.
Right.
And he said, believe in me, if he hadn't gone, he said, I would have done it. I was under orders, I had to do it.
So this team he was in were under orders from the American...
Always Americans, he said, always.
Okay.
And that's not the first time. He said he had other photos as well. This is where this other gentleman that we're talking about from Yorkshire got more information out of him again, and other photographs.
Can we name that?
Yeah, Tony Dodd.
Tony Dodd. So, and did Tony Dodd tell you where he put them, or what he did with them, or whether he gave them to anybody else?
He said he got them in. I got some in my possession. I've already put them in a safe place. He said, but there are other places. He didn't say friends, other places.
Other places, plural.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, because that's one thing that I have tried to do. David Caton spoke to his wife to try and get those, but she allegedly threw out all of his research material when he died. So.
Or could somebody have got there?
So he showed you the photographs on the first time, 11 photographs. Did he give you the photographs at that point or not?
No, not then.
Right.
No.
So did he tell you what they do with the bodies when the Americans take them away?
RAF St Athens.
RAF St Athens.
The north side.
The north side.
That's coming up from Barry.
So that was where they would always go.
Yes.
And then presumably you don't know where after that. Or
that's where the Americans were. Right. Down in an hangar. He said it was a big building on the north side coming up from as you're coming through Barry towards Cardiff. It's on the north side. You can see it there. He said.
Right.
Did he take you up to the Brecon Beacons to show you where things happened?
Yeah, he showed me burn marks. Burn marks in the grass.
Burn marks. Right.
Size of bigger than this room.
Right.
Just nothing grew on it. It's brown.
Bigger than this room. We're in a room about, what, 20 odd feet long. So 20 feet.
There was no, it wasn't, it was just a massive piece of burnt ground. Nothing on it. It wasn't, as people say, marked little circles. It was just one big massive circle.
So did he give you the impression then that the military really have got no control over the UFO? The UFO is doing its own thing and they're there to clean up afterwards? Is that?
That's what he said. What he didn't understand was, I had to ask him the question, how did you take photographs? I mean, it's not your job.
Yeah.
But he said, we've seen so much of this in the UK and elsewhere.
Really?
That we started carrying these little cameras around. For their own reason then, I mean, because they couldn't believe what was happening.
Yeah, yeah.
But to have them developed, he had to give them to a special friend of his who was into developing.
Would they be dispatched from Wales then to go and recover?
RAF St Athens, that's where he was based.
He was based, so
like
they could go to another country.
He said if they could be, the fast response, they could be anywhere. And they also had planes at their disposal and get anywhere. If it is to do within British jurisdiction, they would be there.
Right.
But the Americans would also be there as well.
Right. And did he say, if it was somewhere that was more remote, did he say how they found out about the cases?
Radar.
So it was
again.
So it was. So they can pick up the UFOs on radar and they can differentiate that it's a UFO then. Presumably.
What he said, they can't say they know nothing about them because they're waiting for them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Did he give you the impression that sometimes he was sent to areas before the UFOs arrived?
Yeah.
Right.
On the expectation.
All right. So they'd be dispatched before the UFOs arrived. That's interesting. But he didn't. Did he say anything about how they would know that?
No. They were sent to Salisbury Plain. Things are happening down there. That there was talking about mutilations down there as well. To find out what happened to the people there.
Did he mention any mutilations were taking place other than in Wales?
Yeah, Scotland, Ireland.
Right.
Now we're talking about places in Ireland which comes under the Republic, which is County Wicklow, Kilkenny.
Right.
What I still can't understand is how we knew the girl was 16 and how the boy was 21.
Right.
How did he know that? They were already dead.
Right. And were they laid out on the ground, or were they...
Perfectly. I'm glad you asked that question. Absolutely perfect. It's like if it were somebody just placed them down, like if they'd gone to sleep.
And the 16-year-old girl and the 21-year-old man,
that was a car.
That was a car, and the seats were gone.
Yeah, front seats.
And the engine was running with the doors open.
Which I don't
understand.
understand.
They were laid out on the ground. Okay.
Some distance away, not
right next to the car. No. Right. Okay.
They found the car first.
Right.
And then went on their little exercise to see what else it was around.
So,
doors open, big camper van, called from RAF St Athens, went up there, circled, seen where it was.
In the helicopter?
Yeah. Landed, away from they got decontamination or something, or scenes of something.
Right.
Went over, inspected the vehicle, toys, and clothes, just ordinary things, and no engine running, lights on. Never found nothing.
Right.
No bodies, nothing. That van then was taken down to RAF St Athens.
Right.
Again, which you would go for testing. Like you said, the Americans would be down there again.
Right, so this was just presumably a family that had gone missing. So the bodies were never found in this?
Nothing.
Right.
And that's another thing he said. We find in vehicles, there's nobody around, but there's no investigation. I got to be honest, so after you've seen something, and you get up in the morning, you can't believe what you've seen.
Yeah.
So in the conversation that very next day, which was the Tuesday, 7th of January, I asked him to meet again, because I wanted to talk to him, asking some more questions. Like I said to him, what can I do with the information? He said, you can do anything with the information as long as you don't give my name.
Right.
So I asked him for the photographs again. Upon seeing them, I decided on that Wednesday night, I decided to go to the police on Thursday morning, which I did.
On Thursday morning. You didn't have the photos then, though?
I had them.
Oh, he gave you some?
Yeah.
Did he give you copies and or originals? Or?
Copies, no, he wouldn't get...
Were they colour copies then?
Yeah, full colour.
So he gave you full colour copies? Of what, all 11 photographs?
Yeah, glossy, very glossy.
So, and how many were there?
11.
11 photos.
Which I made copies of.
Right. So you then made your own copies?
Yeah, which I had to, for my own well-being.
Yeah.
And then I gave the 11 photographs to the police, South Wales Police, which was Detective Constable Adams from Western Police Station.
Right.
he said that they were going to arrest him that very minute after I'd come from there. Went home, went back in the morning. I come in back in the morning to see what happened. Went there. Could I speak to Detective Constable Adams, please? He'd gone on holiday.
You had given them all 11 photographs?
Yeah, that's where they'd gone to arrest him.
They went to arrest him. And Derek Goff did give me the name of the police officers and the police station that he took the photographs to and handed one set in.
Right.
And I did a freedom of information request to try and find information about this officer and, you know, did they have a case where 2 mutilated bodies had been reported, and I got nothing back from that. But that doesn't really prove anything. It just proves that they weren't able to corroborate that. But
Right.
When you look at photos like that, you try to reason with yourself. I mean, you're looking for excuses to not to believe what you're seeing.
yes.
You turn them around and think, oh, it might be this, might be that. But when you look at it and he keeps giving you photos after photo and you keep looking at it, you think, God, this is...
Right.
Well, it's mind-boggling because I didn't want the story.
So the third time you saw him, had he been arrested?
No, that's the whole thing about it. I mean, when I went back down to the police station, which was on the Thursday morning, to speak to this police officer, he gone on holiday.
Right, okay, so...
I mean, you're talking about murder inquiry, alleged, which he should have been.
Yeah, so the police have obviously been told to back off.
Yes, which I'm not known for my patience anyway, and I actually punched this police officer in the chest.
Right,
Not hard, which should have been assault.
right.
She's been arrested, which I wanted. Because I had a trouble reasoning with all this. My head was
Because
all
you
in
felt you were
disarray.
being fobbed off by...
No, my head was gone because of what I was saying. I didn't believe,
Yes,
I couldn't
right.
believe that this is happening today.
Okay.
I had never heard of any mutilations of humans ever in my life, except for one. And I only learnt of that about 2 years before. I mean, if you read a book and there's only one, it looks as if the book had been set on fire in Brazil. That's all it looked like.
Right.
But when you actually seen something that you don't want to see and you never asked for, all I wanted was a light in the sky, something exciting.
Right.
When those photographs appeared, he said, they're not the only ones. He was also marked, which he showed me on his arms, radiation. And he was a big man, like he said.
Right.
I'm afraid. I walk up and down, I check my kids all the time, especially in the dark. It's happening all the time.
Right.
He said, we got children, i.e. his group, we got children, and something got to be done about it.
He thought he should report these photographs to the police, which is what anyone would do.
Yes.
So he went to the police, he handed them in. The police said to him, right, we're going to go and arrest this guy that you've met. Because I think Goff had his address by then, or he certainly had his name and his details. They said, yeah, we're going to arrest him, come back and see us tomorrow. He went back the following day and everything had changed. There was 2 plainclothes people trying to persuade him that it was all a joke.
When eventually I got in touch with DC Adams, I said, what happened then? Because I wasn't happy anyway. Oh, I'll tell you what happened. He said, this man seen a light in the sky a couple of years ago and he thought he'd have a laugh with him. Bearing in mind what the story is, mind.
Oh, right. The police officer said that to you?
That's his exact words.
The police officer said to Derek, we've interviewed the guy. He said he was in the territorial army. He said he was pulling Derek's leg and just wanted to make...
He seen a light in the sky a couple of years ago and he thought he'd have a laugh. I thought, no, but that story you didn't. There's no way. That Detective Constable Adams, he was going to arrest him there and then. I mean, I wasn't allowed. You're not allowed to stay. How could he be brought back here and he don't want you to see...
Right.
Because nothing ever happened.
Right.
I mean, I went back in the morning, police officers had gone on holidays. Strange that he had murdered and quiet and he's gone on holidays. When I asked to see someone else, a policewoman came in and a man at the back. And being CID, dressed in plain clothes, I haven't got a clue who they were.
So you don't know who they were, but there was some plain clothes officers that...
Woman I was talking to, because if you look at the psychology of people crossing, if a woman talks to a man, it seems to be all subdued and it's not so much. But God, there was a man in the back there,
right,
standing there with his arm folded.
When they were talking to you?
Yeah, when she was talking to me, saying that, oh, you seen a light in the sky a couple of years ago.
All right, so there was 2 plainclothes officers that you hadn't seen before
Yeah.
came in to tell you that he'd just seen a
in the
light
interview
sky.
room. In the interview room.
In the interview room, and there was another man in that room. You weren't told who these people
He was right in the
were.
corner, just
So
stood
they
there.
could have been MI5 or anything.
I had to keep pushing him and touching him. You know, if you touch a police officer, it comes under assault.
Right.
If you get
You-
arrested, I would have gone to the court, and then I could have told the story.
Right. So you were trying to get a reaction
Yeah.
because you were upset.
And I wanted to be arrested. I wanted to be arrested, so when I went to court, I could say, right, this is why I done this, because of the story.
Okay.
They didn't bite.
Communication broke down between Derek and his source because the source realised Derek had recorded some of their conversations against his wishes, and Derek had given copies of the photographs to the police. After this, Derek wrote an article about the events in Global magazine entitled 580 Security Interview. The editor advised that certain facts about the case be altered so the story seemed less credible, because he was worried about the implications of revealing such sensitive information. After the article was published, Derek Goff was contacted by people claiming to be from mainstream media wanting his story, and offered money. When he refused to cooperate with journalists, he then started to receive telephone threats not to further publish the information, and finally suffered a very suspicious house fire, which seemed to be targeted in his office. He suspects that the person who read his gas meter the day before the fire was a bogus caller who planted a device. The meter was not due to be read at that time.
Can I just ask you about the name then? So it's group and then a
5-8.
space 5 and then a space and then 8. So it's not group 58.
No.
It's group 5.
Eight.
Is it dash 8? Or
No, it is Group 5-8.
Group 58 Security. You were in touch with this magazine, Global, and you gave the story to Global, who printed it in a fashion, but you know there were quite a number of mistakes in it.
Yeah, but
and as a result of it appearing in the Global magazine, you then began to be contacted by people who wanted to buy the story, to have the tapes, and offered you money for it. And it was ostensibly a person, a reporter from the press. I think you said he was from either the Times or the Guardian or something like this, who wanted to give the story. You refused the initial offer, which was £100 or something like that. I forget just what amount of money was involved. The person gave a phone number and an address, which turned out to be false. He phoned you again, giving you another phone number, another address, offering you more money, and you didn't give the details out because you wanted, because you were at the time receiving threats on the phone, which were saying you will never ever be allowed to print the story.
Yeah, but
this is after you've printed it in the Global magazine.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was a bogus reporter wanting the story,
Right.
wanted to buy the story, and wanted to have the tapes.
Right.
And once that had failed, Derek started to receive phone calls which said categorically, you will not be allowed to tell the story.
Basically, you put out the story into that magazine. You then started getting contact by the press. You also give me a News of the World card, and you refused every time to give your story to them.
Yeah, I did, because it was... I had a feeling... I was so mixed up. I wanted the story out, but I didn't want no backlash in. I just wanted rid of the story.
Let's face it, you were frightened because of the anonymous phone calls
I
that
was
were made to you,
to be honest.
to say that you were in danger and that your story would never be allowed to be printed. Derek was contacted by somebody allegedly from Metropolitan Police, New Scotland Yard, who wanted to know information about Matthew Williams. Derek said, I know Matthew Williams, but I can't give you the information. Subsequently, he rang up late one evening, probably about 11:30 in the evening. This guy rang up Derek to say, there's a warrant out for Matthew Williams' address. Do you know where he is? Arrest.
Yeah.
Do you know where he is? So Derek said, well, no. He said, I don't know where he is. Why should I know? Well, they said, if you do find out any information, make sure you let us know, because he's wanted, warrants have been issued for his arrest, he's wanted by this, that and the other. And we believe that this person was trying to discredit Derek. Subsequently, when at 2:30 in the morning we managed to get in touch with Matthew Williams, because Derek rang up and he's at his home, we found out this story was false. So Derek rang up this guy in a Whitehall number, New Scotland Yard number, saying, what the hell are you playing at? There's no arrest warrant out for Matthew Williams. What the hell are you playing at? So the reply came back, Derek, they said, you're good at what you do. I have to apologise. He said, I was told to pass this story on to you.
Right. So if you had then come out publicly and said there's a warrant out for Matthew's arrest, it would have made you looked after as if you were lying about that.
Yeah,
So
and any subsequent stories therein, or what I was on about them, would have been blown out of the water.
When the phone rang and Derek said, the bastards set fire to my house, I just couldn't handle it. I put the phone down and I was shaking. I was absolutely shaking.
As I mentioned earlier, I managed to make contact and meet with the same military source some 16 years later and was able to get further information. Here are some video diaries I made when trying to establish contact with Derek Goff's military source. I need to verify that this guy exists, so I would like to speak to him, even just to say, look, can you speak to me about Group 58? And then if he tells me to F off, fair enough. At least I've identified that this is a real person. I've been given some information about the street where he lives, and I'm on it now. And I don't know the exact house number, but I've got a description approximately of which house it is, so I'm going to have a drive along. I did come along here yesterday, but I didn't have a description of where it was. I just knew the street. So I'm going to drive along here now and see if I can identify it. If I can identify the house based on the description that I've got from, I'll go back on 192.com and see if I can find out the name of the people who are living there, and just to see if the description matches what I've got. Now, I went to the house of the NATO military guy yesterday. I pulled up outside his house and he was sitting on the step, and I had a brief conversation with him, and I've recorded some of that on a pen camera. What follows is a transcript of the first conversation I had when I pulled up outside his house. Hiya, are you Yes. I've been doing some research and would like to ask you, were you involved in Group 58? Group 58? Group 58? In the military? On the Brecon Beacons? He then shakes his head. No. There's a guy called Is that you? Yes. What's going on? You were in the military between 1983 and about 1995. Were you in the army? Have you been in the army? No. What's all this about? It's a story that I've been researching, and I've been trying to find this guy. A colleague of mine helped me find you, so that's all I know. What regiment? It was a NATO regiment, connected with NATO. NATO? Yes, so it's Special Forces. Who gave you that? Who gave you that then? Who gave me that? A guy called Tony Dodd. He shouldn't have given you that. He shouldn't have given you that. Sorry? He shouldn't have given you that. He shouldn't have given me it. Well, I did make contact with him. Tony Dodd has spoken to you, I think. He shouldn't have given you that information. Well, are you prepared to speak to me? No. No. You can't say anything then? No, just drive away. Drive away. Okay. Now, it was fairly clear from that brief conversation that he probably was in this military group, because I said to him, look, you were in the military, and he said, well, which unit was I in? And I said, well, it was a NATO unit, and he was a bit surprised then, and he told me to drive off. He said, where did you get that information from? And then he said, look, just drive away, I can't tell you anything, drive away. So what I've done is I've written him a note, and I've come back today. So the note explained the reason why I'm contacting him, that I'm interested in these particular photographs. I've also included a copy of my film The Berwyn UFO Cover-Up and Silent Killers, which is all about animal mutilation. So I went to put those through his letterbox today, and also a note just to tell him where and how he can contact me if he wants to speak further. I've given him that information now. I walked up the street today and he was in the garden, and I handed these 2 DVDs and this letter to him, and he's actually spoken to me. So he said, look, we can't talk here. So I've got an inkling that, you know, maybe he might speak to me, I don't know, but the guy is on 2 crutches, and he also has a wheelchair. He's got MS. MS is one of the conditions you can get if you are exposed to high levels of radiation, which in the notes that I've got from Derek Goff, this is what allegedly happened to him. He had exposure because he was 5 feet from a UFO, and he ended up in hospital for 2 weeks with another guy. So the condition that he's in now, he had 2 crutches, is quite possibly down to the work that he was doing in his Find and Secure unit to cover up UFO cases, and in particular mutilated human beings. Now, when I said to him, he said, "What's this about?" And I mentioned Tony Dodd. I said, well, I'm kind of taking over from where Tony Dodd left off, if you like. I also said that I was aware of the photographs that have been handed to Tony Dodd. 11 photographs, I said, of 2 mutilated corpses up on Brecon. He didn't flinch. He knew exactly what I was talking about. And when I mentioned UFOs, he didn't flinch. He knew what I was talking about. So I said to him, look, I've got a great deal of respect for you and what you were doing, because you would have had no choice in it. You're obviously a very brave man. And you can clearly see that probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, he's a thick-set, muscular bloke, but he's obviously got some sort of MS, which is why he was on two crutches. So he said, we can't talk here, implying that he might speak to me. So I've given him the package, and I've said, look, it tells you in there, if you want to meet me, where we can meet. But that's confirmation to me. Obviously, he didn't say, yes, I was in the military, yes, I was in NATO, but everything that I was putting to him, there was no look of, what are you talking about? It was sort of almost, how do I know this? How have I got to find out this? That was more his look. So, and I said to him, I realised that this whole thing that you were involved with has not been easy for you, and I said that I respect him. So let's see if anything comes of it. He said to me, look, you can't keep coming to the house. He said to us, right, if you drive down there in this particular car park, he says, wait for me there, I'll be 20 minutes. So I waited, he showed up, and then he said, right, follow me in the car. He drove about a mile to a place which is safe, that no one can hear us speaking. We got out the car. He then checked to make sure that I didn't have any recording devices on me, and I turned my pockets inside out and showed him that my camera was in the car. I said, is it okay if I take some notes? So I had a piece of paper and a pencil. He says, that's fine. So he spoke to me. I made some notes. He was very, very wary about whether I had any recording devices on us. He kind of checked that I didn't have anything, made sure that I kept my camera in the car, and we drove to a quiet location, and as I said, we spoke for about 15 minutes. This man said that he was in a black ops unit that was controlled by the Yanks. That's what he said. And he said that when he volunteered for this in the 1980s, he didn't know what he was getting himself into. He said that we didn't know what we were volunteering for, but once we'd volunteered, we had no choice but to stick with it. You're in for life. And he said that if they find out that people like him speak about their operations, he wouldn't be here and his family wouldn't be here. He was implying that his life is at risk, and his family's, if he was to speak about what he knows about. Now, I asked him about this alleged encounter with the UFO. In the previous notes, it was stated that one of these black ops soldiers was just 5 feet from a UFO. I asked him about this, and he confirmed that that was the case. And I said to him, well, how come you were so close to it? And he said, we were guarding it. All right, so I said, well, was it a crash retrieval? And he said, right, I can't tell you any more information about that, so read into that what you will. Now, he also said that he witnessed all kinds of things in and around the craft. He said that he actually witnessed an ET on more than one occasion, and he said it's nothing like you would see in films with big eyes and smiley faces. And I said, well, what did this being look like? And he said it looked like a devil, which is possibly some kind of reptilian entity. Now, and he also said that they would rip you apart. That was what he said, and he said that he did get a view of inside this particular landed UFO, and he said that there was all kinds in there, and he implied that there was human body parts in there, and we've heard that from people such as Bill Cooper in the past.
There were many more saucer crashes and downed craft than what you have realized. There were many more alien bodies recovered, and there were more live aliens recovered than what you are aware of. But that's not important. The important thing is that they occurred, not how many and not where. The important thing is that they occurred. And those of you who want to argue over how many and where and how many bodies are wasting the time of everyone else, because that's not important. What's important is that they occurred. And there are two crashes that are so important that the government will go to any lengths to prevent you from finding out. And those are two crashes which occurred near the city of Aztec, New Mexico. Why? Because both of those crashed craft contained human body parts. And they are deathly afraid of a national panic.
Now, I asked him about his injuries because he clearly has got health problems, and as have a number of the people who were on his team, and he said that some of his colleagues were no longer with us, so they've died as a result of their injuries, which were they suffered as a result of being in part of this Find and Secure team. He also said that they have all suffered skin rashes, cancer, skin cancer, and tumours as well. And like I say, some of his friends on that unit have already passed away, and they'll only be probably in their early 50s. Now, I asked him about the injuries to try and get him to describe the injuries that have been found on some of these recovered corpses, and he just said, you just wouldn't want to see it. All right. He also gave information about an underground facility near Sunnybridge, and also confirmed the radar facility, which is hidden under the ground on the Brecon Beacons, which comes up at night, some radar facility which is used for tracking the UFOs. And I asked him, how come you're able to do this? And it's because he confirmed again that they have advanced warning, and he doesn't know how. He doesn't know how they know when these UFOs are going to appear. And I asked him how often he would go out on these missions, these Find and Secure missions. He said about 4 times every 6 months. I asked him about the statement in Derek Goff's notes that they witnessed between 30 and 40 mutilated human beings. He confirmed that. He confirmed that there's a lot of cases, and he said that it was something you would not want to see. And he was saying, films are all good enough about UFOs and ETs and all of this. He said, but when you get involved in reality, it's a completely different thing. And the other thing he said was, he says this statement that aliens are friendly, that he's obviously heard through watching media and whatnot. He says he was no way. And I said to him, well, how long do you think this sort of activity is being going on for? And without flinching, he said, since before we were here. And I said, is it still going on now? Absolutely. And I said to him, do you believe that there's different types of being, different types of alien? And he said, yes, he did believe that. But the one that he described was, as he said it was like a devil. He says, but it would rip you apart, extremely strong and powerful. I asked him about locations where this activity is going on, and he said he believed that it was happening all over the world. I also asked him how he felt about his situation, the fact that he's not allowed to speak about anything, and the fact that he's obviously physically affected by the radiation burns that he received. And he said he didn't have any hard feelings about it, because he said that we signed up for this. Okay, we didn't know what we were signing up to, but we knew it was something that could put our lives at risk, so I signed up for it. So he doesn't, and he said that's why they're looking after him now. They're obviously giving him some sort of probably psychological and physical support, and probably financial support for his service in this Special Forces group. I didn't get a chance to get the name confirmed. I didn't ask him about Group 58, didn't ask him about NATO, although he definitely reacted in a way the other day to suggest that NATO, it was a NATO group, but today he's described it as a Black Ops group. He had physical sort of lumps on his lips, which possibly was part of this skin tumour, skin cancer that he was talking about. He's on crutches, and he's probably only about 50 years of age. And just from his demeanour and his mannerisms, the way that he put it across, he was confirming pretty much everything that that I was asking him about the original Goff interview, and he also gave me additional information. So for me, it's I'm convinced that this activity has gone on and is still going on, that the ET phenomenon, or the UFO phenomenon in the UK and other parts of Europe at least, is linked to human mutilation cases. One of my objectives was to recover the photographs from the source, but these were not forthcoming. I have no reason to doubt Derek Goff was in possession of the images. At my time of meeting the military source, he seemed to flip-flop over the idea of giving me images of mutilation cases, which he explained he did have in his possession. Here is a list of information he relayed to me in a series of 5 meetings in the latter half of 2013. He joined the military when he was 17, straight from school, and initially trained as a para. He was stationed at Hereford, and they were asked if they wanted to volunteer for something different. 11 volunteers were picked out. It was a Special Forces Black Ops group under command of NATO, in which the Yanks were in charge. Other countries' governments were aware of the operations, but most do not have the technology to deal with it, therefore allowed the Americans to get on with it under the umbrella of NATO. This includes the Russians. Whilst on an operation near the Russian border, a UFO came out of a cavern system and nearly took their heads off, upon which they opened fire. Opening fire would not usually affect a UFO. He thought that there would definitely be another group carrying out these operations today. The operation in Brecon Beacon, where the 2 bodies were discovered, was on Talibant Mountain. The military have secret systems based on a laser that can bring down UFOs. There are 8 around the world that he knew of, 2 in the UK, 1 in Germany, and a few in the US. It disables or interferes with the propulsion of the UFO and causes them to come down. The military had an idea roughly as to where and when the UFOs were appearing, and would send their team out in advance of firing this weapon. Once the evidence is secured, another totally separate team would come to the site. This could take days. They referred to that team as the collectors, who were always American. They would leave with the evidence and would just leave the find and secure team to fend for themselves. He is still in touch with some of the soldiers from his team, 2 of whom have now died. He has seen hundreds of UFOs, some landed and some in the sky. There was a variety of different shapes. They were not flying saucer shaped, some triangular, others square or rectangular, not aerodynamic shapes. They ranged in size from the size of a car to 3 times the size of an articulated lorry. The surfaces were smooth and some had overlapping tiles. They usually had lights on them of varying colours and configurations. One craft gave off a light like an arc welder and caused damage to their eyes, and he had to be admitted to hospital after that incident. Another craft which they got close to looked metallic, but when pushed by hand gave way, having some kind of elastic property which returned to the original shape after applying a force. He said he thought that because some of the craft were so small, there must be bigger mother-type ships which these craft had come from. I suggested that UFOs might use reservoirs as hiding places, and he said no, they don't go in reservoirs, although when asked where they do go, it seemed he wasn't sure. He said they just appear. He did not know where they were originating from, but stated they are here, meaning they are in our atmosphere regularly. He said they can just appear, and when asked about cloaking, confirmed that he thought they had those kind of abilities, and also incredible dynamics. He said they can come down to the ground very quick. The first operation he was involved with was in northern Scotland, and the largest recovery of bodies was in Australia, a case where 24 bodies had been left. Injuries are the same as animal mutilation type injuries. He said that internal organs would be removed and also brains. He seemed to think that anything connected with the nervous system is what they would take. He did not see a lot of blood on the corpses. They usually choose remote, out-of-the-way places to carry out human mutilations. They knew where to go and where to take from, where the people would not be missed for a long time. Bodies included people and children. He has multiple sclerosis and is on crutches. He has various scars, one of which he showed me on his right arm just below the elbow. He has 3 pins in his hip, he had work done on his shoulder, and has had a knee replacement. His friends who were in the unit have had brain tumours and cancers. 2 are now dead. He said that he hasn't had cancer, and then said, touch wood, indicating he is worried about it. I asked if he communicated with any of the ETs he claimed to have seen. He replied no. He said they were incredibly quick. They could move 60 metres in a split second. He He said they are not friendly and you would not approach one. He saw 2 of them wearing what looked like a wetsuit or a flight suit. He said you could not approach them on your own. You needed cover because they were so quick. He said he witnessed 3 distinct types of ETs on these missions. He stated that in 4 or 5 of these cases there were craft debris and they were able to see what had been on board the craft. This included human and animal body parts. He claimed there is a UFO tracking facility in the military land at Sennybridge. It is stored under the ground and comes up at night. It consists of a large aerial, quite wide, about 50 to 60 metres high. It can be seen from the public road at night above the trees. There is also a radar dish that rotates, and it too only comes up at night. It is about the size of a car. The aerial is used somehow to track the UFOs. He believes there are more facilities like this elsewhere in the world. I showed him an image on my camera of where I thought the tracking system was located based on information from Derek Goff, and I did not have it quite right. It is actually behind the trees further back in this image I showed him. This site is very well monitored by CCTV. He said that a rabbit couldn't even get in there without being picked up. There is a public road where the facility can be seen, but he warned me, do not go along the road that goes to the facility at night under any circumstances, implying that would be very dangerous. He claims the underground facility there goes down 10 levels. He left the forces in 1999, but still has contact with the base. He said he thought this issue was being covered up in order to keep control of society. He mentioned religion and how that might be affected. He also mocked much of the information that exists in the UFO field, stating that much of it is put out to confuse and mislead the public. He said he felt the problem might be getting bigger and also that it could not be kept secret forever. He thought the information might at some point come out officially. After the meetings with the military source, I continued to request further meetings with him to try and obtain the photographs, but neither further meetings nor photographs were forthcoming. It was clear he had gone cold on me. Skeptics will undoubtedly now say, how do we know the military source was telling the truth? This, of course, is a valid point, but if one looks at the surrounding circumstantial evidence, such as the attempts to silence and discredit Derek Goff, the fact that after 16 years of silence the military source repeated exactly the same story to me, his initial reaction when I contacted him, the fear he had of being recorded, his injuries, his knowledge of military groups and operations, and his access to photographs of mutilated bodies, all these point to the story, incredible though it is, being genuine. During my visits to South Wales, I did take some footage near where the alleged tracking facility is located.
I'm just at the bottom of the military road, and it says military road ahead, open to public, unless otherwise stated. So,
forward U-turn.
Road open, so this is saying it's okay. Now, as I said, yeah, we've got the cattle grid here, and the facility, it's just down there. Dare I go down there? Dare I go down there? No entry except for MOD traffic. See, could be anything there.
Derek Goff has told me some information about who he handed stuff to, and one of them is a guy called Neil Spring, who had connections with Oxford University. Yes, and he's supposedly given Neil Spring some of the audio tapes of Goff talking to the NATO guy. But I think Goff says that they went missing from Neil Spring's locker, so he lost those audio tapes. So did you have some correspondence with Neil Spring, David?
I'm assuming Neil Spring lives in South Wales, close to Derek Goff, right. Or to, David Coggins, because I wasn't sure how they got to know each other.
Right.
Anyway, I think it's because he lives in South Wales and close by. Yeah, so Oxford University had a year or two ago formed a new UFO group, and they had speakers and talks, and they invited Graham Birdsall to come and speak, who was the past editor of the Quest International UFO magazine and director of Quest International. And at some point in the proceedings, Neil Spring apparently took Graham to one side and whispered something to him like, I think you ought to know about this. So he was acquainting Graham of his knowledge from those audio tapes, thinking Graham might do something with it. And I think at that time, when he got back to Yorkshire, to Leeds, Tony Dodd had actually left and resigned his position with Quest International. So he thought, I would be the appropriate person to pass this message on and a phone number. So I did ring him, and with the hope that he would furnish me with a copy of these tapes. And he referred to this third person, which is obviously this army chap that you've identified, and said it's more than his life's worth to pass them over, which is a bit strange when he's already had them and David Coggins has already had access to them. He wouldn't give me the contact number of this military guy, or even David Coggins, because he didn't know that I didn't know David Coggins at the time, which I didn't. So
I think you and I are both of the same mindset, that we don't make a judgment as to the true motives or the reasons behind this. We're looking at the evidence. All right. Now,
yes.
The knee-jerk response is, whoever's doing this, it's an absolute evil thing, which it appears to be on the surface. It's not benevolent in any way. Now, there's quite a large school of thought in this field of ufology, which is that no non-human intelligence would ever harm another intelligence, shall we say.
Yes.
So they're all benevolent, in other words. And this is put forward by people such as Dolores Cannon and Stephen Greer. Stephen Greer is also of that same mindset.
Yeah.
Now, I don't make a judgment as to why they're doing this and what the ultimate reason is, but Greer in particular has been making noises recently about the reasons for this. Just tell us a bit about that, David.
Yes, he's issued a paper, which was issued on 31st of August, so very recently. I haven't read the whole paper. I've only read the extracts, which has been circulating around in the last week on the internet. And he's, I agree with some of his comments in the sense that he's postulating that this unseen government and the industry and the money, financial institutions and the oil barons and all the rest of it are leading up to some false flag case where they might do things to replicate what the ETs are doing, to put the fear of God into everybody, to make the general populace think we've got a threat from
an outside
source off planet.
Yeah. So they might fabricate an alien threat.
Yes.
And so his hypothesis is that anything that seems to be evil connected with unexplained UFO type phenomenon is all a psyop.
Yes,
that's what he's saying.
He's saying that the evil people are the government agencies, or whoever these people are, or orchestrating and ordering this sort of activity to fool the public and the media. My response to that would be, well, okay, why have they got a NATO group being set up, which is covert apart from the one whistleblower that we've had, to tidy up after human mutilation cases? Why does the military need their own group to keep it secret and keep it covered up and take away the evidence and seal off the area and all the rest of it? Why do they need that group? Just look at the case on Filey Beach. Is Stephen Gray saying that the military did that seal? Yeah.
That was just so happened to be found one morning by a couple of people walking past on Filey Beach. Yeah. And there are cases all over the world as well.
Yes, well, the case Tony reported, and it's in his book, on beaches, adjacent beaches in the Orkney Islands in 1994, 93, over 30 seals found, with all decapitated, but cut through the same vertebrae joint in the neck.
And I've just think of the Dalby Forest cases. Is he saying then that the US military is running around Dalby Forest or acquiring animals from all different sources, some of them farm animals? You've got sheep, you've got, there was a donkey, there's a fox, a badger, all with the same sort of similar injuries in a pile. in Dalby Forest, and the military are doing that deliberately so that someone might just by accident come across them and then tell Tony Dodd, who several years later might just so happen to write about it in his book, and then we might talk about it in an interview just to scare the public to think that that ETs are evil. Is that contrived or what?
Yes.
Is it not more likely that this is some unexplained phenomenon that is going on in the UK and other parts of the world?
I mean, Stephen Gray is postulating that some of these are done by the military, replicating animal mutilations and abductions, and I think to myself, how can the military... I don't think they've got the expertise. I mean, thinking of what Professor Fremont has said, that A, there'd have to be a skilled and more skilled than Professor Tony Fremont, and how many people in the ranks wearing a uniform in the United States Army or the Air Force or even the Navy have got this expertise to replicate what the aliens are doing to animals or even human beings. So I don't think his reasoning stands up to scrutiny, to be honest.
Putting forward this argument that all ETs would have to be benevolent, that is possibly some kind of psyop in itself, in that, in my view, that at some level the NSA or whoever have had some contact with the groups that are possibly doing this, and maybe even have knowledge of it. I mean, Goff said that they had advanced warning of what day there was going to be UFO activity and would specifically monitor the situation on certain days. They knew when mutilations were more likely than others. They knew which days. So that suggests to me there's been some communication at some level. And going to the Dan Sherman interview, he also alleged that they were in cahoots to some degree. I mean, we don't know exactly what that is, but perhaps this is a way of them, I don't know, watering down or playing down the seriousness of what's really going on. What are your thoughts on that, David? Do you think it's an entirely separate thing that they just haven't got control over?
It's possible. I think maybe some historical deals have been struck with maybe one group of aliens. I mean, what we all keep forgetting, including me, there's not just one alien species out there visiting Earth. There might be 30 or more. I mean, Tony thought there were more than 30. So they've all got slightly different agendas, and they might need the organs and tissue and the blood from lots of animals, and the same for a number of human beings, to do what they need to do, which might even be, in the long term, be for the good of us all. I mean, that's conjecture on my part, but there must be a purpose and a reason to keep on doing this. And I think that the authorities in the 50s or wherever any deals may have been struck, the aliens have possibly reneged a bit on the promises, or we may have as well, exchanging information, technologies which would be useful to us and American.
I mean, clearly, if the Goff story is entirely true, which I suspect it is, then they haven't, our own military, NATO, whichever group's in charge of it, haven't got control of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't need a group to go around running after
sweeping up the mess,
and then hiding it from the public. So they've not got a handle on it.
No.
Which they would definitely. We know that they've covered up on animal mutilation, and as Tony says in his book, this is an even higher level cover up.
Yes.
For obvious reasons, I suppose. I mean, I don't agree with covering it up, and I don't think you do either.
No.
But people in positions of power, they probably wouldn't want to share that information.
No. I mean, Stevie Greer is a very persuasive, strong character. Quite bullish, in my opinion. And, he's dictatorial a bit, perhaps, like you follow my line or you don't type of thing, And he's got his own agenda anyway. He runs tours which earns him an income for taking people on contacts and sessions to meditate at some place in the States, which he regularly uses, and which he charges, I guess, quite a few $100s a throw for that.
To try and make telepathic contact with extraterrestrials.
Yes, and they get lights responses and so on, and people get excited about that. So he doesn't want to show the aliens in a bad light, because that would frighten people off going on to these special tours of trips and meditation and making contact with the aliens, or a particular group of aliens, which might be quite friendly towards us earthlings in that particular location. I don't know, but he's trying to put this overall umbrella up that they're all not here to do us any harm, and they're all here for our benefit. And it may be that for our benefit they have to take so many animals and all this blood and guts, if you like, even from human beings, to something to do with preserving our planet and us as a human being, the human race, in the future. So it might be sacrifices, people might say, have to be made for the good of the rest of us. And also they want to preserve this planet. So when you think that the United States government, or whoever they are, have killed all those people on 9/11, London bombings and all these other atrocities, as to further their cause to enter a war with some other country in the Middle East or whatever, for them to agree or be happy to sit back and let a few men in the street, or women in the street, including children, to be abducted, never to be seen again, and mutilated as well, begs the question. And lots of ufologists and people I'm close to, and I realise what we're doing now is going to upset them a little bit, which I'm sorry I'm having to do that by making this documentary, but I think it has to be told and has to be said. And I can have sympathy why certain people who are quite close to me, who have been investigating animal mutilations, have got into that and done so because they've had interaction personally with ETs over many years, and members of their family have. And because this is happening, it's a very unsettling thought to think that the next time they take me, I'm not coming back, or they're going to mutilate me or a member of my family. So I can appreciate and understand the antipathy to people who have had that association with ETs, which I haven't had, to be anti the prospect and the acceptance of human beings being treated like the animals in the field. You see what I mean? And it does divide the camps in the ufology, and as you've said, it's often a step too far. It clearly is for Linda Moulton Howe, with all her vast experience and information she has upon Earth files, was a pioneer in bringing the animal mutilation cases and information to the public domain. Bless her heart, she did a tremendous job and still is. But then she stops at this point of non-acceptance of the human element. And you have to ask the question, why is she doing that? Has she been warned off and said, if you want to continue doing what you're doing with coast to coast and all the rest of it, you've got to not involve or mention or talk about human mutilations? Otherwise you're out of business, lady. I can hear them threatening. She's been threatened. She told me and Robert one day in Wiltshire she'd had a gun pointed in her face to threaten her, because she was already overstepping the mark a bit, even with the animals. So that's a clue to me that, if she's getting threatened about her information she was divulging and promulgating on the internet about animals and all her talks and her books and all the rest of it, something stopped her.